to another episode of the Empowered Choices podcast, brought to you from the Yenkasa Digital Hub. And my name is Danoni Ufedudu, and I'm the host for today's show. I'm not doing this alone, of course. I have some lovely guests beside me, and then I would love them to introduce themselves. So right beside me, we do have
Wendy Tipokanondia, an ardent sexual and reproductive health advocate, youth empowerment and gender equality advocate as well.
Nyaku Mensa Kwating, a youth advocate with PPAG and Faith, Hope and Love Group, passionate about issues of sexual and gender-based violence.
Thank you very much. You look lovely today, I must say.
Thank you.
And then thank you for coming to the show. You're welcome once again.
Thank you.
So today we would like to move on to our topic, which is creating safe space and scaling up access to GBV services. But before that, let's talk about scaling up, the Scaling Up project. It talks about how we can scale up the access of services to GBV survivors. And we'd like to acknowledge UNFPA for funding this project implemented by PPAG. So let us move right into it. So our first question, when we say safe space, what comes to mind? You know, people usually talk about safe space, they find their safe space in music, they find their safe space in reading and movies and all those things. When we talk about safe space, but in terms of GBV, what comes to mind in your experience? Can you tell us something about that?
Thank you very much for this question. This is a very interesting topic to be discussing with you here today. So, in my opinion, I believe safe space is an enabling environment that provides you with that sense of security, that support you need, and also ensuring that anything discussed in this space is confidential and private, and you come out of this space being empowered. I believe this is my understanding of a safe space, where it enables one coming out of that place to be very much empowered before you are out of that very space you find yourself.
Powerful. Coming out of that space being empowered, which means something has to change when you enter into that safe space and come out of it.
Exactly.
That is lovely. Please, do you have anything to tell us?
Yes, and to add to that, safe space is, in this context, it's not just about the physical location that the person or the victim is being assured of, but it goes beyond that. The environmental factors, that assurance of confidentiality, being assured that, when you come to this particular space, there is confidentiality, you will come out without being harmed, you will get the necessary help that you need as what? A victim. Yes.
Yeah.
A very key point you've drawn over here. That is very, very great. And okay, I would like us to move on then and ask, what are the challenges that you think survivors do face when they are trying to access health services after experiencing gender-based violence? What are the challenges you think they go through when they are trying to get help?
Okay, thank you very much. So, I believe one of the major challenges survivors experience when going into access health services are stigma. I believe stigma remains the major challenge that we are trying to bridge the gap between survivors and health personnel. And again, I believe the attitude of these health providers also serve as a reason to prevent survivors from accessing these services, because finding yourself in a place where you expect to be safe, sound, secured, and also empowered, and you meet a health provider coming with that off attitude that doesn't give you that room to discuss your issues. That turns you off to even discuss the issues you are going through, and may even volume up whatever issue you may be encountering at that very moment. So I think for people to access some of these services, there should be that sound environment, there should be that enabling and welcoming environment to discuss some of these issues, and also that peace to discuss some of these issues and assured of confidentiality before they can come into spaces to discuss their issue. Else, these challenges will keep preventing them from bringing justice to their tables and also addressing their issues they brought to the health care places.
That is very, very true. Stigma, that is one thing that people do struggle with a lot. Stigma, because in the first place, someone who has been through this kind of experience tries to self-stigmatize themselves. So when they come to you for help and then we tend to give them some attitude, you're not receptive about it.
Yeah,
they tend to, and then confidentiality. These are very key things you've actually mentioned, and that is very important. Please do.
Yes. So just to add to that, I want to, looking at where I come from the northern part of Ghana, and most of the times some of these issues are very prevalent in those areas, and I have seen people who have been abused, beaten by their partners and all that, and they are unable to report because there's this fear of being believed, there's this fear of being ashamed, and then there is also this fear of even walking to the health facilities that he mentioned. And then the other aspect to it is that is cost. Do they even have the money to go through this particular process to report issues of GBV? No. So sometimes they end up keeping it to themselves and then continuously get abused by their partners. Yes. That
is also very, 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 very true. Because I've seen these kinds of things happen before. I mean, an example is rape. Someone being raped, and then after everything going through all these things, instead of the person now trying to heal, you find the community now trying to shame you that you've been raped. Meanwhile, it's not your fault. Meanwhile, this thing happened to you, and all these things they deteriorate your healing process, and you actually have to look into it. And cost as well. You mentioned cost, and that is one thing I would actually like to highlight upon. Yes, there's cost actually, not necessarily monetary, not necessarily in terms of money, yes. Yeah. But then there's cost, in case someone is wondering, cost, because we are aware that when you go to DOFSU and report these things, it's usually free. Actually, if you are not aware, when you go to DOFSU, you go to police station, tell them you want to talk to the DOFSU unit, and then when you go there, reporting is free, and also make sure that you do that as soon as possible. But then there's cost. There's opportunity cost. There's a cost for you going there, showing your face, and then bringing yourself out. And this is very, very important. So we move in again. Your experience in terms of accessing legal services for GBV survivors, after going through that experience, how do you think the accessibility, do you think it's easy for them to access legal services as a survivor, especially in rural areas? So Wendy, please tell us something and then we move to.
Okay, so for me, I would say that no, it's not, legal services are not easily accessible in such areas, such that they are limited. And the other thing is that it is even very difficult for them to report. And most of the times they rely solely on the informal systems, that is reporting to the chiefs or an elderly person at home to make sure that the issue is being resolved within them. And so they don't have much information about the legal systems in Ghana. So mostly it's either by the chief or the family member who resolves it. I have seen instances where when I used to work with PPG in Tamale there, that they bring issues of GBV and even rape cases as well. Then in the process of resolving it, they'll tell you that they want to go back home and then resolve it because it's a family matter. And sometimes you need to respect that. Because the moment you even send the issue forward, it doesn't actually, they'll just make sure that nobody comes to talk about the issue, and then it dies there. And that, yes, and there is also one that I can say that was a success, because the process, the girl was being given to a man who has about 5 wives. He was old, an allergy, and in the process of everything, she reported, because there was this peer educator for the UNFPA Ending Child Marriage Project there by then. So someone reported to her, and she also did it underground, and then the chief and everything, they went to him, PPAG took over, went to DOFSU, social welfare. So in the process, everything went on smoothly, and the girl is out, she's in school, she's now in senior high school, and even a volunteer with PPAG. So yes, this is actually a plus. It works sometimes if you have the information, and it sometimes doesn't work if the person doesn't even know where to go to report the issue. Exactly.
Information is very, very key, not just accessing the services, but then having the information that you have the right, having the information that you need to go and see these particular people and not these people. That is very, very important. Please, you tell us something.
So I believe still on the information bit, awareness rates in these rural areas are very low, and leading to cultural stigma because they are not even aware about what they are supposed to do in terms of going in for legal services when these kind of issues pop up or come up. So because they are limited in information, they are unable to actually support the person when the person comes out to seek legal services. So again, in seeking legal services as part of the cultural stigma, they tend to label the person as a hater of their culture or a hater of that community by exposing the community to the general public or the whole world to know that this community supports or sort of covers perpetrators. So I believe some of these things do hinder survivors from pushing for legal services and to meet justice. Again, I believe economic hardship, once again, that's we were discussing the bit about cost, becomes a barrier for people in rural areas. I mean, if one-stop centers or support systems are not available in these rural areas, they have to go beyond these areas to seek legal services. And if there is no support in terms of finances available, they are unable to seek and get these justice they need. So that leads to also they coming back to their shells and being abused. Again, most of the times, the reason they are handicapped when it comes to this economic freedom is because their perpetrators are the support system they had in terms of finances. So detaching yourself from this perpetrator and reporting this same perpetrator becomes very difficult because, I mean, this is the person who gives you these financial support you get, and this is the same person who happens to be the perpetrator in this situation. So I believe addressing some of these issues will making available support systems and also legal services readily available to them will also help us bridge the gap between survivors getting justice. Yeah.
That's very good. Not just available, but readily available.
Exactly.
Because usually some of these survivors, they were with people who were those holding them, taking care of them.
Yeah.
So it's very hard for them to leave this person and come and talk to you, and then they have doubts that you may even try to help them or listen to them per se. That is very, very important as well.
Yeah.
And I would like to ask again, what role do you think psychosocial support services, in terms of the mind with the environment, what role do you think they play in the survivor healing process? Me, for once, I know that it helps the person rebuild their self-worth in terms of your mind, because mostly your self-worth, it starts from your thinking. It starts with how you think, what you think about yourself, who you think you are. So this kind of services helps you rethink yourself. But then can you tell us more, in your own view, what do you think this comes in a long way? How does the services help the GBV survivors?
So thank you very much once again. So I believe coming out of or having access to psychosocial support also helps you improve upon your mental health. And by mental health, we believe that most of these sexual and gender-based violence or gender-based violence survivors tend to have some of the other parts of the violence catered for rather than the emotional aspect. And so I'm thinking that if you should get this psychosocial support, it will help you build upon your mental health and also come back to rebuilding yourself. Again, I believe these small emotional support systems that are available in our communities also help the person come out of their shell to also discuss some of these issues. If the environment is made very comfortable and enabling for them to discuss some of these issues, I mean, that's some sort of psychosocial support for them to also rebuild themselves. So I believe psychosocial support goes a long way to just dealing with the issue, but rather rebuilding the person rebuilding their life and getting back their things on track. Yeah,
very, very important as well. And that is good. I'd like to direct the next question to Wendy. And
with what he just said, can I add something? I just wanted to say something short.
That's very okay.
Just to say that psychosocial support is very important, and it goes beyond the healing process. It is something that we have to move away from the physical aspect. In as much as we are trying to deal with that, the emotional aspect is very key, and that of the mental health of the survivor. So we need to look at these things. Yes.
That is. Thank you for pointing that out as well. And the question to you, and then is also open to our brother as well. But I would like to ask, how can safe spaces be created not just physically? Because I'm glad you actually mentioned that safe space is not just a physical space, but then how can these spaces that are not just physical but also emotional and culturally, how can these spaces be created in the first place to help these people? For once, I know for active listening, at least the least you can do for someone who has experienced that is to just listen to the person. So to you, how do you think this can be created aside physically?
Okay, so briefly, to just add up, to create emotionally safe spaces, we need to have trained staff, qualified staff,
Very well,
who are empathetic to understand the issue, understanding where the survivor is coming from, how the survivor feels, and being able to put him or herself in the shoes of the survivor through the counseling process and everything. So that is just what I would say. Emotionally safe spaces. And we should understand where the person comes from. That is looking at the cultural aspect of the person, their beliefs. What are the things you think that, if you say, we have to report this case, how will the survivor think about it? You think sometimes they don't even want you to talk about their partner or even report it, because they feel that they might be rejected at home or they might divorce. And sometimes it might not only be about divorce, some are not even married though, but some are insecure about losing their partners. So you need to put yourself in the shoes of the survivor to understand where the person is coming from and being able to support the person both emotionally and then physically.
That is very true, very keen and brief. And as you said, empathy, be in the person's shoes. Especially as a social worker, but not just as a social worker, health service worker, but just as a person, as a sibling, as a friend, be empathetic. And I actually like that. I like that as well. Please, do you want to
just to add up? I believe in terms of the cultural aspect, language is a very, isolated thing when it comes to a discussion in gender-based violence. People forget that the communication that comes across during issues of gender-based violence also matters. There may be someone who will be okay with the processes of, providing legal support and the other aspects, but through the process, the language or the communication that comes across still makes them feel withdrawn and isolated, doesn't completely solve the issue. If myself, I've been in that place and you are dealing with the issue for me, but the way you are going about it, the words you use still makes me feel like an outsider in the whole situation, or still makes me feel like I'm not out of that shell yet. I think it brings me back to the same place again. So creating that environment where GBV communications are also focused on, and also there should be a clear-cut communication for GBV conversations, so that if I'm telling someone that, we are dealing with this issue for Nanama because she has been raped, I'm making Nanama feel like you've been raped, but you are back on your feet with us. Not making them feel like, Nanama dear, baby say I don't know. Into the man and snatch and see dear. That kind of thing makes the person go back to that place again, rather than bringing the person back to her feet. You get it? So I'm thinking that if you should look at the issue of emotional support and also going beyond creating safe spaces, but emotional safe spaces for people, we should also look at the communication that will help them feel among.
Yes, that is true. Language is strong, as we say.
Exactly.
Language is strong.
Exactly.
So whatever you tell the person, know how to say it and say it well, because it's very, very important. It's what goes straight into the person's mind before you act. That is very important. We are getting to the final very soon, and then I would like to ask another one. What is the role that you think young people, and then what recommendations do you have to youth-led organizations as well as policymakers? What is a recommendation? One recommendation you have, and then what do you think young people and then youth-led organizations can do in creating these safe spaces? What can the youth and then the organizations in these areas, as well as policymakers, what do you recommend that we can do with that? Starting with Wendy.
Okay, so for me, as someone who is very passionate about issues of GBV and fighting against the whole issue, I think we need to work so much on our reporting systems, the facilities and all that. In Ghana, as we stand, per my knowledge, I feel that we have just, or I know we have just about 2 safe spaces, if I'm not mistaken, in Ghana, to receiving victims of GBV, which is very bad as a country. We need to work on more to make sure that we build or we provide more shelters for these victims, so that if you are telling them to come for a safer, is it safer shelter? I'll put it that way.
Yes. That works. Yes. It works well.
Yes. So if you are telling them that if you come to this place, we are advocating for people to access safe spaces and all that, we should make sure that the building is available, and then the other aspect I spoke of earlier is also available, which is providing them with not just the building, but the support they need, both emotionally, their mental health is okay, assuring them of confidentiality, because confidentiality is one of the things that makes them run away from reporting issues of GBV.
That's true.
Understand?
Very
so
true.
If we assure them of confidentiality, and then making sure that if a victim comes to report issue of GBV, we are going to take it and make sure that this particular victim is not just anyone, but it's someone that will make sure the person passes through the entire phase to heal from the trauma that has been caused. And I also say that another recommendation is to train the health providers. Health providers is not just the nurses, the midwives, and the people we see in the facility, but the police is as well, and any other organizations that is fighting to the issue of GBV. They need to go through this training of how to understand the values we mentioned earlier, how to understand the person and where the person is coming from, and the communication he mentioned too. It is very key. Communicating about issues of GBV is very important, not to make the person get more offended or even affected, but to let the victim understand that this is, we understand your issue, we know where you are coming from, and then we can do something about it, so the person can feel safe.
Exactly.
In it, yeah.
Exactly.
So to add up to what Wendy said, I mean, looking at recommendations, I'm thinking that for policymakers, we should go beyond just asking, but rather they tailoring their policy making into developing policies that are survivor centered, or to meet the survivors' needs. Because I believe if they sit back there to make policies and they don't feel what the survivor feels, I mean, they may design something that may not necessarily meet what the survivor actually needs. So I'm thinking that if they prioritize developing policies that meet the survivors' needs, it will go a long way to also addressing some of these issues of where survivors are wandering around looking for safe spaces where they can rely or stay.
Very important. Just like a tailor. The tailor sits in his or her workshop,
Exactly.
and then just with imagination just tries to sew anything for you.
Yeah.
You end up wearing it, and then it may not fit you, the person who is in need of that material. That is very, very true. Thank you to both of you. That is very, very important as well. So policymakers should try and then let whatever that you're coming up with, it should be the survivor centered. It should be tailored to the person's needs. It should be tailored to the survivors, and as well as the victims, and as well as even to those who are yet to be that. We do hope, and we are fighting that doesn't happen again. But while in that fight, we hope that policymakers listens to us and then acts upon that for us. Thank you very much. So I would like to ask, as we are talking, as we are saying, access to services, access. I would like to ask, are there any hotlines available for survivors? Are there any contacts? Are there any places, referrals where anyone can go get even just the information and leaning on to be able to get a service for GBV? Are there anything like that you like to mention?
Okay. Yes, I know we have some particular hotlines. The DOVSU, that's domestic violence and victim support unit.
Yes,
DOVSU, yes, we have that. We have the UNFPA Orange Support Center too as well. That when you call them, they will support you as well. It's basically on GBV and other sexual and reproductive health issues. And then we have the Yankasa, PPH's Yankasa Contact Center too. If you call them, they are in contact with these DOFSU and then the Orange Support Center. So they will link you to these people for the victim to get the services that he or she needs.
Okay, and interesting enough, I actually tried calling the Yankasa that you spoke of, because it's best that you do test things out before you comment on this. So yes, I actually tried calling, and then it went through. The call was received, and then I also got to know that even if your call is not answered within that second, you will be called back, and then whatever we have for you, whatever you want to tell us, we are ready to listen to you as well. That is very, very important as well. And
I think they work 24/7.
Yes, 24/7 as well. Thank you for highlighting that as well. That is very, very important, that we let people know that wherever you are, there are people who will listen to you. There are people who would help you out. There are people who are going to give you the necessary help that is needed from DOFSU, from UNFPA, and then Yankasa as well from PPH. And you may ask, how do I get to contact these people? Don't worry, I'm here with the news for you. So for Yankasa, we have a toll-free line, and then when we say toll-free, we mean that in terms of that you don't need any airtime to call us, just pick up your phone and then call us. The number is 0800 20 20 10, 0800 20 20 10, and as well as WhatsApp is 0245 118228, 0245 118228. We are always here to listen to you 24/7. If your call is not answered within the second, we'll get back to you. Everyone deserves to be heard. As a GBV member, as a GBV survivor, whatever you go through, you don't have to go through alone. We are always here to help you go through that. And to also highlight on this thing, when we say GBV, gender-based violence, people think it's all about physical, someone hitting you, rape, defilement, and all that. No, but then we have, in terms of verbal, you can be verbally abused, you can be economically abused as well. All these things are there. The information, in case you don't know anything about it, just call us and then we'll let you know. Fortunately and unfortunately, we are wrapping up this session of our podcast today. It was lovely having a conversation with you. Please do you.
So I wanted everyone to know that UNFPA is doing excellently well when it comes to fighting against gender-based violence. They are working hand in hand with the Ghana Police Service to bridge the gap of providing support services for survivors. So we need to also reach out to UNFPA, the Orange Support Center, on 0800 111 222. 0800 111 222. And I recently found out about the Ministry of Gender and Social Protection having a hotline, which is 0800 800 800.
That is a very simple.
That's for Ministry of Gender and Social Protection. In case you are thinking UNFP is a third party, this is a direct government organization that is focused on addressing issues of survivors and also any issue of gender-based violence. So in any issue of gender-based violence, you feel free to reach out to Yankasa, UNFP's Orange Support Center, DOFSU. I think DOFSU is 055 1000 900. Yeah, DOFSU is 055 1000 900. So feel free to reach any of these, and of course, Almighty Yankasa is also very much available. And let's not forget that these issues are strongly confidential. Let's not forget that these issues are strongly confidential. Whatever you discuss with us is solely between the survivor and the counselor. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Strictly confidential, as we all head for these things. And before we leave and then everything, I would like to ask for final statement. Do you have anything to wrap up to people that someone leaves with at the end of this podcast, that someone can say at the end of it, Wendy said this at the end of it, we have Kwatin saying this to me, and that's what stick to me.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. So to our beautiful listeners watching us today, I'm trying to tell you here that silence protects the perpetrator. Just to let you know, silence protects the perpetrator. For you to have your issues heard, for justice to prevail, for your healing to be complete, please report any issue of gender-based violence if you come across it. And for that person close to that survivor, support the survivor, create an enabling environment for the survivor to report all issues of gender-based violence, to have a society free from gender-based violence? Thank you.
Okay, so to me, I would like to let the listeners to know that creating safe spaces and access to GBV services is not just about the space. It is about what providing and giving them access to what humanity needs, give them access to dignity, and then the support they deserve. Survivors need to be heard, they need to be believed, and they need to heal what from the issue of what GBV. Everyone is part of the fight of what against GBV. Every individual, community leaders, youth, organizations, the CSOs are all included. We need to fight against gender-based violence. Yeah, thank you.
That's great. Everyone is fighting for this. Everyone is fighting against this, against gender-based violence. We don't have to leave it to the police. We don't have to leave it to healthcare services. We don't have to leave it to just us. We are all involved in this fight against them. And as our brother said, silence favors the perpetrator. Thank you very much. This are very insightful. It was lovely having you on the show. I have to say, I've actually learned a lot. I've gotten other views from wonderful and intelligent with lovely people as well. I'm glad to have you on the show. I would actually love to see you another time again. I get to deep dive into your minds as well. Sure. I would like to say thank you very, very much for being on the show. And then to our lovely viewers, wherever you're watching this, just get to know that there are people who are there to listen to you. Silence favors the perpetrator. Safe spaces are there that when you enter, when you come out, there's supposed to be a change to restore your humanity, to restore your dignity as well. Thank you very much. And then guys, this is the ending of today's podcast show. We'll see you next time with more. Just stay with us. And then don't forget to subscribe. Thank you very much.